The coding bootcamp model has surged over the last 10 years, shaping how technical workforces are grown. How has it changed in the last 18 months plus of a pandemic? Today on Culture Builder Live. Hey, I am Chris Wink. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Technically, a news organization that has a community of technology professionals whom we help companies hire from. We have, over the last 10 plus years, reported on the rise of the coding bootcamp around the country, around the world, these programs that essentially do vocational training with specific technical skills, and then often match them with employment in a hiring hungry tech workforce. We've been covering how the Great Resignation, how high quit rates, how continued digital transformation needs even more tech hiring. So it got us thinking, has the coding bootcamp model changed in the last 18 months? Where's it going from now? To have that conversation, I am blessed to be joined by Desa Burton. She's the executive director of Zip Code Wilmington in Delaware. Desa, thank you for being here.
Hi, everybody. This is exciting. I love this. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So we have covered Zip Code Wilmington since, I think you founded around 2015. We've been reporting on you guys for 6 years. Well-respected, entrenched relationships with Delaware's very rich and serious financial services and other firms, good reputation. Maybe test my premise. We actually haven't had this conversation in depth. Has the last 18 months shifted or shaped what and how Zip Code Wilmington operates?
Yes, it has. We went remote in March of last year, and I think that wouldn't have happened for us for another 4 or 5 years to just have fully remote training. But due to the pandemic, we were forced to do that. And it was awesome. We found out we could do it, and we could do it really well. We were able to graduate multiple cohorts. I think we've graduated about 9 cohorts now, fully remote, and they have done really well. They've gelled. They've gotten jobs. I mean, it's as good as it was in person. Obviously, being in person is a lot more fun. But being in person was dangerous last year. So we were able to do that remote. And, with tech, I think developers have been doing this remote for years. You have overseas teams that are working together with teams in the domestic United States. And so it wasn't anything new, but it was just something new for us, and it was great.
Did the classic didn't unmute button. It happens. So what about curriculum? Has that shifted maybe even over the last 5-6 years, but more precisely, has anything shifted in this last 18 months? If so, what? If not, why?
Yes. So we did add a new course of instruction. So we're known for doing Java software programming, object-oriented programming, but early last year, we added a new track, data engineering. So our corporate partners came to us and basically said, we need data engineers yesterday, and we need them in large quantities. So we came up with a curriculum based on input we were getting from our corporate partners as to what they need from an entry-level data engineer, someone that would support a data scientist in building pipelines, wrangling data, putting the pipelines together, putting the visualization together. So having someone in 12 weeks learn all of that. And we launched it last year, right around the time of the pandemic. And so we've had several cohorts that have come out with data engineering. And I have to say that all of our corporate partners ask about that curriculum first. They want to know what our data engineers are up to, what they've learned, and who's available.
So maybe I'm interested in how deeply local many of the coding bootcamps around the country have been. Zip Code Wilmington, likely a leader. Burton, founded by people in Delaware, working closely with employers in Delaware. I remember reporting on the earliest days of Zip Code. Its intention was to solve a very specific version of a workforce crisis in Delaware. It was very geared toward the workforce that was in Delaware. Are you guys having conversations about how that shifts, or does that remain true that we are for Delaware employers? How does that happen in the midst of rise of remote work and increasingly flexible workforces?
Well, yeah, I think the answer to your question is sort of both, right? We're still very much here to support the regional economy. So a zip code started with a thought about, focusing on Wilmington, then it was Delaware, now it's the Delaware region, right? So we are definitely here entrenched in focusing on workforce development in Delaware. But we're also seeing that more often than not, there's a lot of really fantastic talent that want to be a part of what's at zip code Wilmington. We have people packing up their cars with everything they own and leaving Texas, leaving Florida, leaving Georgia, and moving to this region so that they can take part in what we've got going on right here at zip code Wilmington. And when they get here, they get jobs here, they stay here, they get a house here, an apartment, married, kids, everything. And so they're building, again, the economy of the region. So we're sort of, as we intended to be, this sticky place for really great talent to come to Wilmington. And I want employers to know that, because when they're looking for a pool of talent, they should realize that Delaware is becoming a center for tech and that people are coming here from wherever they are. So companies should think about putting a place right here in Wilmington, Delaware, and taking advantage of all that talent.
So you'll appreciate, as well, Desa, as a news organization, we try to challenge, because we know that there is not a community, a city, a state in the country, maybe even the world, that is not articulating their strength as a tech hiring hub. But a couple quite real points that have always intrigued me about Delaware. One, dating back decades, there's a reason why some large, heavy hitters, particularly in financial services, not exclusively, but particularly in financial services, do pull weight in attracting some very top flight senior engineers from inside and outside the state to Delaware. And two, a newer point, some fresh LinkedIn data that technically is reported on and is popped around a fair bit, interestingly showed that in the last year, Wilmington, Delaware, city of 70,000 people, had the third highest of small cities, basically under 100,000 residents, third highest rate of folks who are applying for remote roles. So the way that was thought of is Wilmington was showing, with tech being a big sliver of that, a real and genuine appetite for people living in Delaware applying for remote roles. There's a lot in that data. You should follow technically for additional reporting. I'm curious if that data crossed your desk, if you had any thoughts or feelings about it. Have you seen versions of that? I gotta feel like you have some tension here of both wanting to make sure folks can work at the employers who have offices in Delaware, but I also imagine your edict is to have tech professionals in Delaware. So if they're living there but working elsewhere, maybe you don't mind that. How do you, as a local kind of workforce development exec, think about that data?
So when I think about that, I think about it as, I'd have to drill down and see, for the folks that are seeking these remote jobs, are they senior level, mid-level, or entry level, right? Because I think they're probably more along the lines of mid or senior. And I think it also says a very positive thing. It says that the economy here in Wilmington is a great living economy. Like, it's a great place to be and to be able to work remotely in other places. It would be so ideal to work in Wilmington and support tech centers in California and Texas and Michigan even, right? You can have this great cost of living, this great lifestyle, and be able to support them with technology from a remote location. But I think ultimately what it's saying is that we have a lot of technologists here in the area. They know that they can be free agents right now, and so they're just checking to see what's out there. I mean, there's a lot of tech companies here, but again, I'm totally encouraging other companies to think about, and I said it before, and I really mean it, setting up another spot here in Wilmington, because we've got the talent here. Instead of having them look out of the border, they can come right in, set up a location, and they can take advantage of it. But I think really what it's saying is we really are building that. We have so much talent here now that companies can take advantage of. And I think that's why you're seeing that remote work number. It's just a great place to work. It would be an awesome place to work remotely. We're seeing graduates that are picking up remote jobs coming out of our program. And we haven't really seen that much, interest before in looking at, potentially moving or looking at remote work. But I think people are looking at the idea of working remotely from Delaware and using that opportunity to, see other companies.
So you have seen some of your graduates of recent cohorts. That's been an uptick. That isn't something that you saw, Zip Code saw a few years back.
No, before it was, you needed to be located near the facility where you were going to work, right? You had to commute. But now what I'm seeing is on both sides, right? I'm seeing students that want to take Zip Code Wilmington's curriculum, take the training remotely, and then move here to take a job. And I'm also seeing people that are local seek remote opportunities as they stay here. So it kind of works both ways.
I mean, that, and I'll note for those who are actually watching the LinkedIn live stream, can drop comments. I do see them. I'm sometimes rotten at actually tracking them, but we have these are praise of loving kind of the intention and vision you're setting about this how you balance remote life world. So keep the comments coming in, folks. You seem to be, that seems like a pretty profound next change in the coding bootcamp model. There already were some that were virtual. We've reported on those, some who were early on virtual, but you're given an interesting lens for Zip Code Wilmington, opportunity and challenge. You can now compete truly nationally if you want to get folks from elsewhere to take your program, or if you want folks who are in Delaware apply elsewhere. That probably raises the stakes. Is that net good for the coding bootcamp kind of sub industry? Is this good? A good trend? You like this trend? Yeah.
I think it's absolutely good. I think it's all net positive, right? Because with Zip Code Wilmington, what we're finding is that students come to us, and in final interviews, I hear all the time how students have looked at online boot camps and they're not as excited about going to them because they feel like they're not sure they're going to get the quality education, or they feel like they need that one-on-one sort of connection. And although we have been remote, so we've done remote training and our students seem to love it, as closely connected to that in-person training as you can get. I feel like online training, doing this remote training, gives us an option to be hybrid in the future, to add online curriculum, to add an online program for our program to support our corporate partners, of course. But it also spreads the word. It spreads the message. It spreads tech to places where we couldn't reach before. So, small town USA can now take advantage of being tech. They have to have the infrastructure to support that. But now there's a reason to demand having that infrastructure, because they can take advantage of having this training done for them. And if it's done right, if online training is done right, then someone can walk out with the skills that they need. I think that over the pandemic, we really honed that in. And I think our online training, the way we did it remotely, is different than some other places. So, might not need to hold your breath. That might be something we're doing very soon. But I think online training is here to stay. I think it's going to grow in the bootcamp field. I think those that are looking at going to boot camps are going to have to learn how to differentiate how boot camps are doing it online and which one works best for you and what's the quality outcome. Like, are students getting hired places after doing that training? And then from there, we'll just increase the number of technologists, I think, across the country, including small town USA.
I think the geographic dispersion is something that I wanted to hit on, but a couple more comments roll through that I want to throw up. We have Tapesh Katwani, I think, shouting out the Wawa crew. Appreciated your note here specifically on some front end dev, and as you alluded to, data engineering. We maybe, like, I'll build off Tapesh's point here. One of the big conversations in technical hiring generally is, how can one of the fastest growing corners of our economy contribute to racial income inequality, gender income inequality, even socioeconomic upward mobility, where the United States has had some declines in the last couple of generations. On behalf of, like, the coding boot camp sector, which often bills itself as one of the ways to make this more attainable. If we can do evening, if we can do flexible tuition programs, if we can find to meet folks, class, gender, race, a lot of different backgrounds, if we can meet people where they are, coding bootcamps are meant to contribute. We haven't seen the big top level gains in a decade or so of coding bootcamps, but there's a ton of anecdotal stories. How bullish are you on coding bootcamps as being a driver of a more equitable or more representative tech industry?
Well, I'll just tell you, when I first walked into Zip Code's offices back in, I think it was 2018, and I saw the pictures on the wall that had 30% African American Latino graduates. Some cohorts were half women, 30% to 50% women. When I saw the instructors, we have 5 instructors right now, 5 main instructors right now. 4 of them are African American males. So when you walk into a place like Zip Code, you think to yourself, oh, what's the problem? There's nothing wrong with tech. There's a lot of diversity here, but it's really here, and it's not out there. And I think the reason is because Zip Code was founded with diversity as a part of its makeup. It was baked in to have it be accessible, affordable to all, that for those that have talent but not opportunity, here's this chance to move up, level up into tech, into a job like we talked before, to help you live, work, and raise a family, right? So when I think about boot camps generally, boot camps that make that same commitment to accessibility and affordability, to quality training, to quality outcomes, reportable transparency, I think that gives us an opportunity to start moving that needle on technology. And as far as getting the awareness out there, although business owner, I don't like competition, but at the same time, having a lot of boot camps in the area means that there's a lot more awareness around technology, and that just helps. Because when I've talked to, for example, we collaborate with the YWCA, and we're trying to get the word out to have folks at the YWCA apply to Zip Code. One of the challenges is that some of the ladies there cannot see themselves as a programmer. They're like, what do they do? I don't understand what they do all day. I don't know what this technology stuff is. So there's this huge, gap that we have to just bring that awareness out there. And I think that having more boot camps, having tech in the discussion on the daily news, in regular, newspaper reports, just where it's just in the public, always in the public, that would start to increase, I think, folks that are in BIPOC communities seeing themselves in these roles. But again, it's all got to be accessible, affordable, transparent, quality. And that's what we give here at Zip Code. And I think that's why we're getting the outcomes we get. And there are other boot camps that do that as well. And so, as much as I don't like competition, I still want them to go out there and get that done, because that's how we bring diversity to tech.
I like that. I mean, I'm over time here, but I want to throw up one last question I see coming in here. Dear friend Stephen Babcock dropping this backtracks a bit, but let me reframe this. Essentially, if you now as a coding bootcamp can have, I'm getting people to move to Delaware who can work anywhere, or I am getting a company to be able to greater staff up in Delaware. So like company concentrated or people. Do you see do you see one being better than the other?
I see them both being, it's sort of chicken and egg, right? Because the companies don't want to move in unless they know that there's a labor force. And the labor force doesn't want to move in unless they know they can get a job. So I think what you're sort of seeing is a labor force is moving in because they want to get fantastic jobs. And like I said, that's why I wanted to drill down on that data on who's actually looking for the remote jobs. Because if it's not entry level looking to get into a great company, so you start your resume off with some fantastic spot, you learn what you need to learn, and now you're like, oh, let me see what my options are, right? So I think that both are important. We have to draw talent. So we have a talent pool. We have to take the talent we have right underneath our nose and train, get them upskilled or reskilled into these fantastic roles. And then, at this point, we're reaching out and telling companies, look at what we've got here. You can have a second location, a third location, a first location right here in the Delaware region and have this talent available to you. Well said. So I think you can't take one away from the other. But remote work is, I don't think it's the exclusive view of the future. I think we're all going to be back in buildings. We may be working in hybrid roles until vaccines really take effect. But I don't think that, being in a place is gone for good. I just think remote gives people another option.
I think that's well said. Yeah, the number I'll leave you with is we're still seeing in surveying it might get as high as 20% of professionals who are majority remote. That's kind of on the higher end of where those numbers sit. So still majority looking like we'll be in the office in some form. Desa, thanks so much for going a little bit over with me. That was this week's Culture Builder Live. That's Desa Burton of zip code Wilmington.
Thank you so much.
We'll make sure to drop additional links in the description. We'll see you next time on Culture Builder Live. Thanks so much.
Code build.